Congressman Scott Perry, first of all, on the business community in New York, they are wondering if it can happen to him, it can happen to us. We had Governor Hochul from New York come out over the weekend and try to dispel things, but she actually made them a little worse. Let me play that sound and get your reaction. Roll it.
I think that this is really an extraordinarily unusual circumstance that the law-abiding and rule-following New Yorkers who are business people have nothing to worry about because they're very different than Donald Trump and his behavior.
So, Congressman, isn't that just confirming that this was a political decision, not blind justice at work, but a political hack job against Donald Trump?
That's exactly how I see it, David. I mean, very different than Donald Trump. So Donald Trump's running for president. We hate Donald Trump, but don't you people worry. We want your money. We want you to invest in New York, but not this guy because he's running for president and he might win. I think, Kathy Hochul said the quiet part out loud. Yeah. And not only New Yorkers, but the rest of the world heard it. That's exactly right.
She's not the brightest bulb in the chandelier, I got to say that. But we do have something quaint called a Constitution, and that Constitution has a 14th Amendment in it. And I'm just going to read part of the 14th Amendment. It says, no state shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Now, so it's been 70 years since this law was attached. Nobody but Donald Trump has been affected by it in the way he was because of what he did. That seems to be, to me, a violation of the 14th Amendment, equal justice.
Well, why wouldn't the left use the Constitution against this president? They don't actually care about the Constitution, and they're interested in any kind of new way to use lawfare against the former president to make sure he doesn't become the future president. And that's exactly what's happening here. And not only have we seen it from Kathy Hochul, we've seen it from this judge. And the fact that they've made this ruling that he has to comply within 30 days, everyone knows what's happening here. Unfortunately, President Trump still has to deal with this somehow and satisfy this the circumstance. And as you said, David, they're literally setting him up so there's no way that he can succeed. It's exactly what the Constitution was conceived to prevent.
And by the way, meanwhile, he is running for president. I mean, it's not like he has nothing else to do. But the idea, of course, was to fill his time with all of these lawsuits and prevent him from campaigning. But somehow he manages to do it because he's Donald Trump, and he does those sort of things.
It's the ultimate in election interference. And I found it fascinating as well regarding your other story that President Biden is claiming executive privilege regarding these documents and coming to Congress. Meanwhile, they're denying executive privilege to President Trump for when he was president with documents. These people know no shame. They know no bounds. They use whatever they can, and the hypocrisy be damned. They just don't want Donald Trump to get anywhere near the presidency, and that's what the root of this is.
But what they are showing the American people is the juxtaposition of Donald Trump dealing with all of these lawsuits, having to come up with this huge amount of cash, which normally rich people don't have. It's tied up in assets, and running for president all at the same time, and doing a pretty damn good job of running for president at the same time, running around while President Biden has this problem just getting up in the morning, apparently, because he goes to bed so early. They put a stop on all of his activities, spends most of his time, it seems, on vacation. And now, of course, Special Counsel Hur's report suggests that he really has enough trouble so that's why he wasn't charged with a crime, because of his hoard of documents that he took when he was senator and VP. So are you guys in Congress going to demand to see the transcript of that Hur conversation with the president?
Of course we are. Absolutely. Members of Congress are also people that have national security clearances. I'm one of those people, and not just the one that you sign when you get to Congress, one that is actually done by the security clearance folks that do real ones that take a year to get. We have those clearances as well. There's absolutely no reason that Congress can't, now that the case is over and it's been determined what the fate is going to be, it's going to be nothing. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever, executive privilege or classification, that stops Congress, members of Congress, certainly the big three, from taking a look at those documents and making their own determinations.
Yeah. Now I want to turn to that Georgia case against Donald Trump, which is a very complex case, and yet it's handled by a couple of prosecutors who seem to be like the Keystone Cops on steroids. You have prosecutor DA Fani Willis, I guess is how she pronounced it, and her sidekick, Nathan Wade, who was turned out to be her boyfriend as well. I have to play a tape, by the way. This is from 2020 when she was running for the DA's office, and I just want to play it for you and get your reaction. Roll that.
You're sitting with someone today that actually wants to make a difference because they deserve a DA that won't have sex with his employees, because they deserve a DA that won't put money in their own pocket.
Knowing what we know now, won't have sex with her employees. Knowing what we know now, shouldn't she be disqualified just on the basis of that tape alone?
Well, of course she should be disqualified. But like I already said, David, Democrats and the left know no bounds, certainly when it comes to hypocrisy. She can't even live up to her own standards. Why should she expect the voters to expect her to live up to them? And she should spare them the pain to have to continue with her leadership in that position and just resign now if she had any respect for herself or the voters, or quite honestly, the Constitution and the law that she professes to uphold.
Yeah, and we have much more to talk. There's also Jack Smith, and who also has a very checkered background of his own, but we've got to leave it at that. Scott Perry, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Happy President's Day. Thanks for being here.